satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.
This is Satellite Haiku. I'm Milo.
And I am Shawn.
I quickly jotted down while we were getting ready. I wanted to quickly hit my first world problem. And I have actually because we've been sort of organically trying to decide how to sort of formalize the show. It'd be fun to have actually.
Have we?
Well, I think organically, we've been saying, maybe we should stick to a topic. Maybe we should form.
I don't know if we got so far as should. I was we were speculating about the idea of maybe. Anyway, go ahead.
We're organically speculating about perhaps. So I'm making a subtle suggestion. So, but my first world problem is, do you remember when we were talking about how you liked to, if instead of tapping 2.5 for 25 seconds on the microwave, you would just go 2.2, you would hit twice because it's just a little faster, right? So I started doing that because of your suggestion, and
33,
and so I do 2.2, and my microwave has become it's probably 2 years old. It's a brand new type, but it beeps twice. So I touch it, beep beep, and 40% of the time, it only registers one of the twos.
Oh.
So then I push start and it goes, and it stops. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because it beeped twice. So I'm trying to do this efficiency thing, and it's actually it's sort of half broken, if that makes sense, 40% of the time. Yeah, which is annoying. It's a first world problem.
That's a first world problem. I'm pretty pleased with the uptake of this microwave technique, because you're not the first person to come to me and say, hey, because of you, this is how I do my microwave. No,
it's true. It's a really good technique.
33 seconds, 44 seconds, 22 seconds. Yeah.
And I know that you're moving your finger just, 3 centimeters, but there's some mental thing that saves time just to double tap. Tap is much more efficient and easier than trying to figure out what other, It's true. Yeah. Certainly.
Well, they always say, the number pads are arranged weird. Sometimes you have a sort of a 3x3 number pad. Sometimes you have our microwave has 2 rows of numbers, so it's
that's weird. Yeah.
Then you're trying to find the number. Yeah. So it's efficient.
One thing I've never really, back when way back 25 years ago, when we joked around about starting a consulting firm where we would just complain about stuff. Complain about design and a car's air conditioning UI and stuff.
First world problems, TM.
Exactly. One of the things that I sort of horrifying that no one's ever figured out was, how microwaves they're trying to come up with these quick things like defrost or defrost 20, defrost 30.
Right. They give you a special preset mode or whatever, and then
I've literally used those things zero times. I just can't stand them.
Sure.
I think it's such a waste of UI interface because
I feel like Apple comes out with things that get preloaded onto the phone that sound cool, but I would say shortcuts I use one time now so far. It seems really useful.
I'm annoyed,
but I've used it once. And then what's the other one? There's one called
Can I reveal what the one shortcut?
There's a Sketchpad one that I saw that popped up on my phone after an update, and I was like, "What is that?" And it's some kind of drawing app or something. I don't know, but they add these things, and I always think of the team. There's some team. Oh, it's called I don't fucking know. Some team at Apple that works on it. That they're super excited. Hey, we got our product out there in the world. Apple does no promotion at all on draw some shit on this new app that we have or whatever.
So here's a couple of thoughts for if we were going to go have topics for the show, a section, One would be obviously first world problems. I think because we go back so far, I think we could call one little section, could a 5-10 minute section could be memory lane. The other one is AI fails, because I do have a couple of funny AI fails. I was on the way here, I was listening to NPR.
These are things that you would end a show with or start a show with, and it would be a recurring segment at the end or begin, like we do with first world problems. But
and I don't
go
think
ahead. AI fails. What's your AI fail?
I think one of our failures for doing it at the end is if we run long, we feel rushed. Yeah. So we just cut it off. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
If we go to 120, we're
if we did a better job of watching the hour. But, we're not good at that.
It's true, but I think that's part of the sort of the magic of just being able to ramble.
I agree.
So anyway, so my AI fails. I'm gonna prompt us with so I'm driving here, and this woman is the president of some university that's doing graduation. There's like tons of graduations. Like our neighborhood's flooded by 50,000 students yesterday.
Yeah.
And so they were using an AI agent to read the names of all the students that were graduating.
Oh my God.
And it started to read.
Why would they do that?
Well, that's a great question. So it started to read the wrong names.
Oh no.
And she just had to turn it off. And she admitted, this president of the university, she said, like, wow, so we were using an AI agent to read the names, and everyone booed. Like all the students were like, boo.
Right, because this has become a theme now. Like these people get up and talk about AI and they get booed.
Yeah.
I've seen like so many clips now.
So, but what was funny was she was like, lesson learned, like we don't need an AI agent to read the names, like just fucking read the list, right? And so anyway,
I don't get what, like, it seems like I get the idea that you might do that as kind of a fun little, gimmick, like a joke almost. But
sure, I guess.
Was that what it was?
No, I think someone, maybe her assistant was like, what if we just have the agent read this list of 500 names so that a person doesn't get exhausted or something? I mean, it is kind of scary.
Yeah. I guess it is a lot of names.
And there's a lot of pronunciations that are tricky that people often, they wince and they say,
No, I mean, like I haven't successfully had an AI narrator, know when to say read versus read, for example.
It's hard,
with READ and stuff like that. So they, I don't even know how it would deal with names.
So this is kind of both AI fail and a first world problem. My wife's new Hyundai Tucson has CarPlay. And, and I've called them for tech support, and they're like, dude, it's not our fault. Like
that's a CarPlay thing.
Our SDK is so fucked up with Apple, and they will not help us. And we're really sorry, but it's Apple's fault. Like they just won't help us. So anyway, it always kicks me off, and I have to do it like 5 or 6 times and reboot everything. So anyway, so I typed into, and when I say AI, I mean, I'm in Safari using Google search, which is Gemini, right? So I should point to the person who's failing. Gemini, the thing that's failing. And Gemini says, oh, it's so easy. Just take a paper clip and find the little reset button on the side of the screen and just hold it down until it resets. And I'm like looking at the screen and like 0 reset button. Like it just made that the fuck up. Like there's no Hyundai Tucson.
Just hallucinated that,
right? So that's happening like kind of all day long.
What if the whole car had like a paperclip sized hole on the side of the car? Well, and you just reset the whole car that way?
It said the screen.
It's like behind the front wheel.
Anyway, I just thought like that is more annoying. It could become dangerous, obviously, for some scenarios. But when it just makes shit up, like there's no fucking reset button on this car. And it's just thinking about a modem or a router. Like it's thinking about a router, and that is common.
It just synthesized that from some other combination of electronics. Yeah.
So then I'm trying to load this GitHub thing for changing PostScript fonts into a source like open type or something. And I said, hey, I'm getting this error code. My wife says, oh, I use AI for R and Python and all coding stuff. She goes, it's excellent. So you should try it again. And so I put the error for the Python package that's missing in the thing. And it gives me some terminal code, and I'd run it, and I reboot, and just fucking the same error. Like it has no fucking clue how to fix my package setup PIP thing for Python.
Yeah.
And so I want to tell my wife, I'll be like, it clearly is good for you, but when I'm trying to fix like an OS thing with Python, it has no idea. It doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, so what good is it? Like what? I'd rather like read in a Unix Bible or something, like old-fashioned.
Yeah. I've had mixed success with, I mean, that's the thing about these AIs, right? Like they're really brilliant and really stupid simultaneously. Like they do the dumbest things interspersed with things that are surprisingly like jaw-droppingly kind of impressive, right?
Yeah.
And so they do those things side by side. Those 2 levels of competence exist side by side in the AIs all the time. It's wild. I think I was actually gonna talk about AI a little bit because I was thinking about this phrase in the AI bubble or whatever, like, is it a bubble? And there's a lot of different ways to look at that question, economically, technologically, whatever, right? Are LLMs a bubble, but AI is here to stay in other forms? There's lots of ways that question comes up. But the way I was thinking about it was that it just feels, and maybe this is what I wanted to ask, is it just a function of being 57 years old and having this sea change happen in the world so quickly, like where you can't escape the discourse around AI, like especially, I don't know what it's like in Tucson, but in the Bay Area, like every billboard, every bus ad, like if every tech conversation, every interview you might have with a company, every job posting, like it's AI just through and through every single. It's pervasive. It's like the definition of pervasive. It's through everything. And I was thinking about how, in a way, that's part of, for me, and this is where I wonder if it's a function of my age. Part of it for me, this is part of what makes it feel unreal for me, like a dream, like I'm living in this dream. Like you're in a dream state, like the world can just be whatever, like some arbitrary weird thing can just be the reality of your dream, and you accept it. But you also wake up from it and you go, okay, well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that was a dream because that was fucking weird, right? And we have this AI thing, which is like, it feels like that. It feels like the world changed overnight. And there's something about the level to which, and the degree to which it changed and pervaded everything, and the speed with which that happened makes it feel unreal, like a dream, like a bubble. Like it could all just go away tomorrow. You would wake up and go, hey, that whole AI thing was weird, right?
Yeah.
But I was trying to compare it to my life with other things, like just the internet, the dot-com bubble, right? Like it is kind of true. Like if I look at just what I just said about how pervasive it was and how it's a part of every conversation, like, I guess the dot-com bubble was kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like it changed the internet, the rise of the internet, the web, not the internet, but the web kind of changed everything within 3 years. And every conversation, like magazines sprung up, like Wired magazine became a thing, like stuff that just became fixtures of the culture began quickly right in that time. And a lot of things went away, right? Obviously, the web didn't go away though. Like there were aspects of it that were a bubble in any of those other definitions of it. But to me, like going through that at that time, it didn't feel like a weird dream reality. You know what I mean? And so I don't know whether that was different than this or whether I'm just older now. And so like it feels different to me at this age to go through such a sea change so quickly. I don't know. What do you think?
That's really interesting. First of all, remember, ba-doing, you've got mail. Like, do you remember that was like that? Once we had that, we were dialing up with a 2800 baud modem or something. Like, I sort of bought into it, and even though it was frustrating and slow, and it was literally like if I was doing illustration back then, and I would ship to the magazine, illustration editor, the art director, I would ship it in FedEx, and he would scan it, right? Like an actual thing. And then I switched to Photoshop, and he would we all decided to like, you'll email me or upload to my FTP server like a JPEG.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was like, and it felt like it's never going back. Like we're not going to not.
Like how we did a million different things, like the way we did a bunch of stuff just changed really quickly.
Really quickly. And it never turned, there wasn't an opportunity for us to roll back the clock to before that.
And I wonder if I was 57 at that time, would I have felt like I do now with this? Like, would I have been like, this is so weird. Like everything is changing so quick. Like the world is different than it was 3 years ago. And it just feels like a dream. Like if I was 57 at that time, it might have just felt like that. So it might just be a function of being this old, like being like an oldster and having the world change around me so quickly. I don't know.
I mean, certainly, like that's a really interesting. So I think about like Norman Rockwell, you see those pictures, he paints himself sitting on a stool with a really big canvas for the cover of Saturday Evening Post. So like and then they must have taken a photo of it and broken into CMYK with 3 filters or something. And then like I was, it was probably 1997 that everything went from painting something on a piece of, watercolor paper to whatever you did, you had to scan it and email it and usually mess with it in Photoshop before.
Yeah.
So I remember taking like Photoshop 1.25, class at Pima College, and I guess you're right.
Yeah, like, same. I think it was in the 1s or 2 versions when I took a Photoshop class. It was like right at the beginning,
and
before layers.
Before layers. I remember, when layers came in, it was like mind-boggling that
was such a game changer, Such a game changer. Anyway, continue,
So my thought is, and then I watched my kids who were born in 95 and 97, and they went through, people still had record players and vinyl. They still had tape decks. I had a 4-track, And then they went through, we had VHS, then they had Blu-ray, or whatever.
There were certain technologies that basically came and went in the course of our lifetime and their lifetime. Like, think of how quickly the digital camera replaced film.
Right.
And then how quickly the digital camera itself was wiped out by smartphones.
Yeah, that's true. And then, like, for instance, DVDs. My kids went from VHS, where they knew how to clean the thing and it would get tangled and stuff. And then they did DVDs for a fairly short time. And then we would have a subscription to Netflix where they would mail you
the DVD.
Stupid scratched DVDs, and they and you'd mail it back. And it was so dumb. And it was a good idea. But then they were part of the streaming, and they they never went back to playing no one has a DVD player anymore. And that was pretty darn quick. I don't remember exactly the timeline there. But
it was, yeah. But like, for you and me, we changed a lot of how we do things. Like, we grew up, in a certain way of doing things as teenagers, right? And then the internet came, and the way of doing a million different things, just basic things, changed. Yeah. And then professional things obviously changed like crazy. Yeah. It became the sort of the DNA of every business. You had to have digital, first a website, but then like it quickly went beyond just having a website to like just everything running somehow on the internet, in the cloud, applications, whatever. Like, everything was digitized in some sense, all workflows, all of that. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, so like, when I guess I think of how fundamentally that changed so much, it didn't feel weird to me and dreamlike like this does. And I don't know, maybe, like, do you feel that way about this? Maybe you don't.
No, I feel this way. Really, I'll be perfectly honest, since the pandemic, and I stopped going into the office, and then I left my job and started to do freelance work, I just have been feeling, I'm going to use the word trippy, like I'm living in a dream.
It's trippy.
It's trippy. Yeah, it's very trippy.
And maybe part of it is that we're not in an office setting where like the company is changing everything. You know what I mean? Like,
right, that's true. Yeah.
But I think of like what it would be like to be a software engineer over the course of the last 4 years, right?
Yeah.
And basically go from just like everything you've always done as a software engineer to like, hey, what's this AI thing? Hey, should we be using AI to code? To like, basically, these guys are prompt engineers now. Like, there's something like 70 to 80% of code that's happening in a lot of companies that's basically being done by agents now, and overseen by humans to some degree, but less and less, because the speed and the volume and speed at which these agents spit out code is now so far beyond what a human can even review.
Yeah, it would take us months. So it used to be like, it would go through this.
There was a human in the loop. Just a year ago, there was like a human in the loop that would do code reviews. And, I mean, the way software works is you review the code before you merge it into the main code branch, because you don't want to introduce bugs into the main code branch.
Right.
But that's not even like, we've scaled beyond that now. Software developers are sort of in this nightmare state where they're like, we can't review the code anymore because there's just too much of it to review. We don't even understand the code that it's writing half the time. It's like kind of messy code, like it's not elegant code. It would take too much to try to pour through it and like figure out, like I can work with my agent to sort of clean it up a little bit, but it's just like, it's hard to even, it's one of those problems where it's like brilliant and stupid at the same time.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the what I hear from software engineer types is just that like the code that it produces is both impressive and bad, you know, in all the ways that other stuff that it produces is both impressive and bad. But the volume is so high now that they're just like, I don't know, you know, like,
yeah,
that's it.
But you're back to your point about, so this is a not a non sequitur, hopefully, but back when, was it Al-Qaeda? I guess so. 9/11 was 2001. No, 9/11 was.
I'm glad you said it's not a non sequitur because I'm with you. Okay, I'm with you. Sorry, go ahead.
And I'm thinking about just the idea that like humans aren't reviewing the entire line set of code at this point, and it's just kind of living in the ether. And then possibly there's going to be specialized agents that come in that only clean up code and make it less fat.
I mean, that's how it works now. They, you know, like coders have, they'll have agents that are writing code. They have agents that are doing, you know, code reviews, basically. They have agents that are checking the code for security, you know, vulnerabilities and whatnot. So they basically have these kind of like, you'll spin up 5 or 6 agents and they each have slightly different jobs, and, you know, but the end result is still imperfect, right? Like it's just like the speed is incredible. But anyway, continue.
Another thought actually to that. So I was using that analogy. I was an art director at Roche, and I had this creative team and we would make stuff. And then they fired the whole team and they told me, your job is going to be to hire an army of agencies that's scalable. Like I can, you know, make them scale. And
you'll
then
have sort of a portfolio of contractors you can go to and agencies and whatnot. Yeah.
And I literally all day long was opening up version 337 in a PDF, and I'd mark up and say, oh my God, these idiots, don't forget to make this change. Please check off that you made this change. And I just did that all day long, like commented.
That's what it was like having, that's what it's like working with overseas software engineering teams. Yeah. Like if you have a coding team in India or the Philippines or whatever, that's what it's like, because you have to be, I mean, tell me this is kind of, I would imagine your workflow is the same as that, where in order to get quality output from that team, you have to be really, really prescriptive and precise in in the directions you give them.
Yeah.
And so that in itself takes a lot of work, like to be super, super, it's like that old, there's an old sort of like, there's a software engineering, like a class that, like for kids who are learning to code, there's an exercise that is commonly done where the teacher will say, all right, write down instructions for me for how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like this, it's basically this problem. And so the kids are like, well, you take 2 slices of bread and you put peanut butter on one and you put jelly on the other, and then you put them together. And so then the teacher will be like standing in front of the room, okay, take 2 slices of bread. Like, where's the bread, right? And then they'll be like, oh, you have to get the bread out of the cabinet. I have to put that instruction in there, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. So,
okay, get the bread. And then he's got a bag of bread, and he's like,
how do you get it out of the,
open the bag, right? So it's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the extreme example, but it's basically, if you're telling a machine how to do something, you have to be very precise. If you're writing code, how to do it. If you're telling an offshore team or a contractor what you want, you have to be very specific, because they don't know the context and the goals and they don't have all of that, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to give you something that still falls short somehow in weird ways, unexpected ways, because you're like, oh, I didn't realize I would need to tell them that, right?
So this is so we had this local company. A friend of mine had this like sort of web development company / video producers. We hired them for a lot of things, and I had like maybe 7 complicated projects going with them for internal clients. Like they weren't my things, but my clients would get annoyed because we'd review round 17 and half the things they asked to be fixed were fixed. And it just got so frustrating. And finally, I just drove down there, and there's this like 23-year-old kid that was assigned to this one website project. And I said, I'm going to sit next to you, and I want you to open my email that I just sent you. And he opens the email and he's like, okay, I sent you a PDF that's marked up. Double click on it. He double clicks on it. And instead of opening an Acrobat reader or Acrobat, it opened in preview. So I said, okay, keep going. So go, look at the first note. And he looks and he goes, oh yeah, I don't really know what you mean. And I was like, okay, so what do you do? And he goes, I just skipped that one.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now I want you to go open Acrobat, like right click on the PDF and say, always open with fucking Acrobat. And so he opens Acrobat and I'm like, now look at the comment. And like, so you don't know what to do with that one. And he goes, yeah, I don't know what you meant by that. And I was like, so you hit the word reply and you say, Milo, I don't know. I didn't do this because I didn't know what you meant. Please clarify. Enter. Send it back to me. What the fuck is that?
It's like basic work skills.
I know. I was like, what the hell? And I was like, no wonder that half the shit, whenever you don't know what I mean, you just skip it, you know? And I was like, is that, so what, like, I felt like we were like learning how to hit a nail into like wood with a hammer, you know? Anyway, so, and I understand that like I needed to define that, you know, but I had told this company multiple times, I will pay you twice as much to bring me a perfect, where you check every single change. If there's a problem, reply and say, need more clarification. Like, I'll pay you. And they just refused to charge us more and to make it perfect. They just were so sloppy. It was so annoying.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, so back to our analogy. So I'm reviewing the work. So you're saying that software developers now are basically reviewing reports. I think I froze for some reason.
They're not even reviewing anything.
They're not reviewing reports, like from...
No, they're just merging code and they're just seeing it. Does it look right on the screen? Like, can I click around and does it look full featured, right? I mean... Isn't
there a debug mode though, where you have to go through all the bug fixes and do they literally get their hands dirty in that section? Or
I mean, you know, so the way that software I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far because it's boring, but software developers, right? You have tests that you write that the code has to pass, right? That the application you're building has to pass these tests. And then you have usually you have a bunch of automated tests for all of the other stuff that has already been shipped that you don't want to break it with new code, right?
Yep.
So you have some product, some application like, you know, Google Meet, right? And so I'm adding a new feature to Google Meet. Well, I obviously don't want to break what already works in Google Meet. So you have a whole suite of automated tests that run, and if they fail, then you broke something when you merge the new code, right? So then you have to fix that, right? So there are ways that bug checking happens. It still happens. All of that stuff still happens. It's just the new code is being written by agents and checked by agents, and what I'm hearing most from what I see most in the sort of the conversations around that is not that the code is buggy, it's just really inelegant. It's like it's bloated. It's like I would have done this in 15 lines, and my AI did it in 2,000 lines. Wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's whatever. That's just an arbitrary numbers, but it's just like, it's inelegant. And if you spent time reviewing it, you would go, oh, there's a better way to do that. You would, you know, instead of doing this 3 times, you just put this little microservice over here and you call it 3 times or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Whatever. I'm just kind of making shit up, but it's that kind of thing. It's not that it's buggy. It's just inelegant.
Yeah.
And then, but the fact that it's inelegant raises red flags that like, maybe it's not secure. Maybe it's going to be slow. Right,
exactly. And to your point, an engineer can review 15 lines of code pretty quickly, but 2,000 lines of code would take weeks. I mean, it would be hard to literally go through.
That's, you know, and that's a drop in the. It's like spitting out hundreds of thousands of lines of code times all of the engineers, and then, you know, there's even really more dystopian stuff happening in companies where, you know, like I heard, and I don't know, I just heard this somewhere and I never double checked it, but I heard that Meta has a token. They have publicly in their company publicly posted token leaderboard to see who's using the most AI tokens. And so
the competition.
You get rewarded for using the most AI tokens, which just means like, you know, like if you produce slop, you're going to use tokens, right? So it's like, well, I can, it's like the worst incentive, right? It's like, well, I can generate really bloated code and it will use more tokens than elegant code, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it seems to me that like, there's some dystopian sort of insanity happening around AI in certain companies. I don't doubt that some companies have an AI leaderboard. Anyway, no. It's just like, what was another company that just laid off its whole HR team? And the CEO goes, oh shit, I'll have to look it up. The CEO basically said, yeah, well, you know, the HR team, they were solving problems that they create, like they were creating problems and then solving them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So like I laid them off so they, you know, now we don't have those problems. But it's like, those problems might have been like, you know, microaggressions against some, you know, colored person of color, right?
Yeah, it's sexual harassment complaints.
Whatever.
Or, you know,
like the CEO is just deciding like, I don't want to deal with the fucking problems. So I can just pretend there aren't any by getting rid of that whole team. Like just the shit that's happening is just wild. Anyway,
it does it.
I don't want to go down all those rabbit holes.
For some reason, I'm fixated on this idea of this buried in the lines of code. So let's say it's 2002. Let's say, right, and we've got you know, Robert Mueller comes in. He's tasked with building an anti-terrorism group that's probably bringing in software coders, and so at this point, I forget who did it. It was sort of like an Edward Snowden moment. Maybe it was during the Snowden NSA kind of scrubbing or recording everything into the cave in the server in the back of the cave, and not even like processing it. It's like we could go back and look at it later if something happens, right? And so Al-Qaeda started to, first of all, like the CIA was saying, the most secure thing in 2002 to send a message was to go to like Yahoo webmail or message board, just because there's just so much anonymous crap. And then you just send a message.
Rather than trying to be secure, it's like security by obscurity, they call it,
exactly.
Right? Like
security by obscurity, yeah. So Al-Qaeda started to embed the messages in JPEG compression of a photo. So they'd attach it to a Yahoo email, like a photo of a cat, right? And then in the JPEG compression, you can actually like, I don't know, I'm not a coder anymore, but like you open the
JPEG in a text file and you can see all that or whatever.
And can't you like mark out like don't read this part in, like a note or something?
Yeah.
And then once it's back compressed, like I think that the NSA wasn't like digging into every compression, like compressed JPEG, you know, to look for lines of code that. Imagine if you do find a line.
This is how Al-Qaeda was sending messages.
Yeah, and if you did find it, you could still be like, Dorothy has a little lamb. You know, like give the bag to Dorothy. Like it could be a code with it. You know, inside of a compression.
It could be code. Yeah.
Like nested inside. And so like no one, and just because of the internet, there was so much shit moving back and forth, like cat video. I mean, there's like trillions of views of cat videos. So imagine if you embedded it inside the compression of a MP4, like, you know, like, Jesus, like, I don't know that people want to throw that kind of computing power and electricity at digging through, looking for, and then maybe you find, you know, Goldilocks has 3 bears and, you know, give one of the bears.
I mean, that's probably You're probably just repeating, in a way, Palantir's pitch to the government when they get billions of dollars. It's like, you guys don't want to do this, but our tech can do that.
Right, and no one will ever know if they actually pull it off because it's too far down into the rabbit hole of no one can look at the code, but our agents can, and it's like, how do you prove it? Like, I guess you could prove it. You could say, you could bury some messages in and run it through and see if they catch them. If they don't catch them, you'd be like, your contract's over. You know, like there are ways to check them,
test it. Yeah,
but I don't trust that anyone's double checking, especially in this administration. Like, are they really?
Oh, definitely not. No, they're just taking the money.
Yeah,
they're just passing money around. Yeah,
and
I mean, the level of corruption is just. I had this into sort of a dream state as I was waking up or falling asleep, and I was just thinking about like, I saw somebody did a list of like number of stories. You know, it's like a list of news outlets and number of stories they've done in the last 6 months on Trump's stock trades.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It was like NPR, Washington Post, and New York Times. Like essentially, none of them did any of it. And I was just imagining, like, you know, like being a reporter right now, even if you were like the best faith kind of reporter or a news editor, it's just like, hey, have you done any stories on Trump's stock trades? No. What about his lawsuit of him that he settled with himself to take money from the IRS? Yeah, we did one story about that. But why aren't you doing stories about, well, because he's also waging a war in Iran. He's also in the Epstein files. He's also like looks like he's maneuvering to attack Cuba right now. He's also like talked about invading Greenland. He also is torching our there's also the tariffs. You know, it's just like the fire hose of that stuff to try to cover it. Like every single one of those things is like an administration level like it would have been an administration defining scandal or corruption or whatever. And it's just, each one is just, well, that's just Tuesday's scandal. That's just one of the 3 things that happened on Tuesday.
Yeah, no, it's true that, I mean,
and another 3 unhinged, terrible scandals will happen on Wednesday, right? Like, how do you even deal with that?
Sometimes I do this, and I don't know if this is like a mental health exercise that I just gravitate toward, but sometimes, like I hated George Bush Jr., and I would do this Buddhist thing where I would say, what is it in me and my personality matrix that is similar that I could start to work on in myself so that I wouldn't see him, you know? I mean, because remember, he was after Hurricane Katrina, he said, let's declare war on the weather. Can we drop a nuclear bomb on a hurricane? And you're like, so the original idiocracy was George Bush Jr., and I thought that was
It really
bad.
was, and it didn't feel like it could get stupider than that.
Right.
But boy, did it. Like, not even like a little bit, like several orders of magnitude.
Yeah. I mean, even like when he said mission accomplished, and then like all these people started dying, you know, all these servicemen, Trump is like, Jimmy Kimmel or Colbert did something where they had like 37 clips of Trump being like, the war is basically over. I mean, it's so short. It's the shortest war ever. Like, and he just, it's like, that's like 37 versions of mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And no one gives a shit, you know?
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's like Will Ferrell's George W. Bush impression brought to life and then made still several orders of magnitude more ridiculous. Like just remember just a few years ago, like Trump drawing the hurricane path with the Sharpie.
Yeah, the Sharpie.
Because he didn't like where it was really headed, right?
No, I think he said it's going to hit
like the
Virginia.
idea of that, like that's such a forgotten moment, but that is like so fucking, that's like the stupidest thing to happen that a president's done in my lifetime, except for the other 12,000 stupid things that guy has done. You know what I mean?
It's impressive. It's like
no other president has done something that stupid as draw the hurricane path of a Sharpie. No other president of my entire life has done something close to that stupid. And for Trump, that's just one of like, it's just one of a million things.
Yeah.
Like it's just one more thing. Like barely, nobody even mentions it anymore because there were 20,000 other stupid things. It's just incredible.
It's like you know, one thing people don't realize is that Gerald Ford became the president. He was the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
And Spiro Agnew was the vice president before the Nixon scandal. I don't know if he spent time in jail, but he had to resign and pay fines for corruption, like as of a governor. So he was like out the door because he was corrupt, completely not in any way related to...
Didn't he resign before Nixon, I think? Didn't he have to?
Totally.
He was forced to resign before Nixon, right?
It was long before the scandal even hit. And so like, I was telling Julio, like, it's weird that Gerald Ford became the president as the Speaker of the House because the vice president was so corrupt. I've learned recently that he was bribed with like $127,000 over the course of his governorship. Yeah. and then you listen to like the amount of money that Trump is being, like just like one Qatari airplane. Like it's just, it's mind-boggling how the scale.
Just like there's 3 things that happened last week that are worse than what Agnew did, right? And that's just last week.
Yeah, and probably each of them, like monetarily, was like 1,000 times more valuable. Like whatever.
Yeah, it's anyway, just like it's so far beyond. And I was trying to talk to my kids about this the other day. I was like, you're growing up in a time when the presidential administration is levels of corrupt beyond, like every single thing that happens every week is levels of corrupt beyond anything that any other president did in my lifetime. Even their worst, most corrupt thing doesn't even rise to the level of what Trump does 6 times a week. And what this administration does 6 times a week, and the hypocrisy that they rush to defend it. And I don't know, like Vance on press conference the other day where they were saying, like, again, I just see clips of these things. I don't watch the headline news, but there was somebody that asked him about Trump's stock trades, and it was like, hey, a couple years ago, you were saying that politicians shouldn't be allowed to make stock trades, and what do you think about Trump? All the stock trades Trump keeps making. And did you see Vance's response was just such, like, that guy takes shamelessness to a new level, and he was like, oh, that's a crazy, like, I can't believe you're asking that question. Like, that's such a ripe question for you guys to ask, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He was like scolding them for asking the question. And it's just like, just the shamelessness on top of everything else this is why it feels insane to live right now. And I guess what I was trying to impress on my kids was just like, the stuff that's happening right now is truly insane.
Yeah.
Like, when I compare it to like every other presidential administration during my whole life, this stuff is truly insane. Like, I don't know if it'll ever return to any level of sanity,
right?
But like, just know that this isn't how it always was.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. No. It's a really interesting, you know how like Trump uses superlatives, like I'm the greatest peacemaker. I stopped the most wars. The most. The one thing.
Yeah, he's like, always using superlatives.
What's funny is that the one place where he's actually accurately superlative is in the level of corruption and lies. Like it's true that he's the most corrupt president ever by, as you say, by like many factors greater. Yeah. And he could be like, I'm like the champion corrupt president ever, and it's true. Like, that's a true
right. But then he uses that to point to other people's corruption, Biden, whatever's he will just say that, and it's again one of those like every accusation is a confession kind of things. That's another pattern of this administration. But yeah, it's just enough to make you feel like you're living in the upside down. You're living in an insane. This is why I can't follow the news, because it makes me feel like the present reality is insane. Like, it's literally insane. Yeah. Like, the media doesn't cover any of it, like, because they just can't. You just can't. But it is an epic failure on the part of the media to cover this stuff in any sort of sane way. Like, if the media's job is to help make it feel like it makes sense and to put it in historical perspective and all that, like, the media has epically failed on that front.
Yeah.
Which I think is the reason why I don't tune into the news media on this, because like, it's just like it forever. It's just like, it just feels like, to say they're falling short of the moment is such an understatement. It's just not even like, they're not even, anyway, it's just, it's so, it feels like an insane world.
So I'm going to ride that little wave into shore and pivot back to our spirituality thing. So watch this.
Yeah, please.
So my wife used to work, used a lab called Biosphere 2. There's like big glass sort of dome complex up in Oro Valley,
right?
Or Oracle, Arizona. And
Pauly Shore was in there with her, right?
Well, I mean, he did shoot a show there. It's actually a gorgeous location. People should use it for sci-fi. It just looks like, it looks like another planet, or colony on another planet. And she didn't actually work in this lab, but there's a lab called the Leo Project, and they had these sort of football-sized ramps, that were football field sized ramps with like crushed up volcanic material, crushed up rock. And then they were exploring what it would take for like amino acid material that maybe landed in an asteroid or something onto the sort of cooling lava rock of our Earth to somehow form biological material or amino acid chains that could then become life. Like that's the experiment. It's like, and they create conditions with rain and water and like heat and sunlight, and they try to, I don't know, I don't know the details of it, but basically they're exploring like the beginnings of life on the planet, on any planet, like there's carbon-based life forms on any planet, starting from zero, starting from like volcanic rock and nothing else except for these inputs. So if I, and this is the exercise I'm saying to try to create mental health. So I look at what the mayhem that you're describing, the political mayhem, the social, the sort of, all the wars we have going on, the violence on the earth, and climate change, and this sort of, we're heading toward this Kali Yuga like filter or event horizon. If I pull back and go, if I pull back far enough to that time when when there was no, human life form, at least, right? Or even before, like any kind of mammals and I were to like write like a prediction, like that we could end up here where this level of complexity could actually exist. It's actually phenomenal. It's like a phenomenal, you know what I mean? If you withdraw all your personal judgment from that you feel uncomfortable, but you just look at what did occur from cooling rock and then water vapor and
it's a miracle.
It's a miracle, right? And yes, now from our perspective, at this moment on the timeline, and from this perspective, like we're like liberal white guys and 57-year-old white guys, like there's a horrifying aspect to like, it could have been different. Like it could have been utopia, and it feels like a hellhole of spiraling shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you pull back a little further,
you're 100% right. And I that's kind of, I would say, sorry, keep going. But I think I do a version of that is a version of how I keep my mental sanity as well. What you're describing is similar to sort of like, I think what I'm doing, but keep going. Yeah.
And then to bring it back from that, we'll call it like, do you remember The Power of 10? I think it was the that couple that made the Ames chair, the Ames couple, EAMES.
Yeah.
They had made this film called The Powers of 10. Where they keep moving back.
Which you can find on YouTube. Yeah, really cool.
Really, really wonderful. It's the same exercise, right? Where you're pulling back to see like a layer perspective, like a sectional back, where all of the relevancy changes because
it's like the Carl Sagan pale blue dot speech, right?
Exactly.
All of that. Like when you do zoom out, and you don't even need to zoom out very far. Like you hear astronauts, like the Artemis astronauts were so eloquent in their descriptions of what they felt being in space. Did you hear any of their speeches? Right?
I didn't. No. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's worth going to look because like, and many astronauts have sort of come back and said something similarly eloquent, but I felt like the recent Artemis crew, their speeches were beautiful.
Captain Kirk, when he went with Blue Origin, was awesome.
Right, exactly. He was another example. And so that overview effect, which is part of the inspiration for Satellite Haiku, the name, right? Like that overview effect gives you that same thing. It's just like this sense of like, hey, where are these? I think one of the Artemis astronauts said, like I went up in a spaceship, but the thing that struck me as I was looking down on the Earth is that we are the spaceship. Like we live on a spaceship.
Yeah, we live on a spaceship. It's true. It is true.
And so... And she went on, but that feeling that like, hey, all of this stuff that we're in the middle of here that feels so big, we're just these little tiny specks on this spaceship, and it's really none of it is that big. And also, just like when you talk about your zoomed out view, not only in space, but in time, if you take the zoomed out time view, like all of this stuff is just, it's just a tiny, like in the lifespan of the Earth, it's nothing, right? Like in the lifespan of like human existence already is almost nothing compared to, say, how long the dinosaurs were here. So this current moment of human existence that's crazy is just a tiny little, a tiny little vibration on that record groove, right? It's it's nothing. And so, yeah, I agree. Like that is sort of the perspective I take to keep my sanity and to remember that, like the one thing we can count on is continual change. And, maybe it's that event horizon coming up will be a big sort of inflection point of that continuum of change. But like, yeah, we're heading towards something or we're not, doesn't matter. Like we are and we aren't always. And so, yeah, I just feel like, it's that sort of that, we've talked about the macro view and the individual view in the past, in past episodes, but it's just that, yeah, it's that same exercise of zooming out that I feel like I do. And also I go back to my own experiences of the sense of eternity that I've felt during like my psychedelic experiences and the sense of interconnectedness and oneness, and just sort of that the separateness that we experience here is an illusion. And the temporality we experience is kind of an illusion. So all of that helps me feel better. But then you dip back into this meat suit in this moment, and it feels crazy. Yeah.
So I take the exercise a little bit further to get back to from this sort of irrelevant Milo and Shawn's personal meat suit of relevance and experience.
Yeah.
And then try to kind of find a forward path toward hope. Like, so I went to a retreat, I don't know, like 12 years ago, a Buddhist retreat with Geshe Michael Roach. He's the founder of Diamond Mountain and the Diamond Cutter. Kind of, like a guru figure that had some, if you Google him, there's some, what is the word, tumultuous backstory. But we were in the retreat, he was talking about, I think we were talking about the fact that Buddhists are pro-life and anti-abortion. And I loved to debate the Buddhists. Like in the workshop at lunch, I was debating them, and this is my argument. So he starts out with this thing where he says, what should we really call an airplane? And people are like, what do you mean? And he's always a little bit mysterious that way. And he's famous for the thing, he holds up a pen and says, the chew toy is a chew toy to my dog, but to you it's a pen, so where's the penness? It's a great little trick. Yeah. So he said, what you got? And so and he goes, why don't we call it a shining aluminum tube of death? Because they do crash and then they blow up and then everyone burns to death, like they die. So, and you know that when the plane's taking off, you kind of go like this, and even if you're not religious, you say, Om Namah Shivaya, or something like that. Like you say something because you hope yours doesn't crash.
Yeah, there's a sort of internal leap of faith that you feel like you feel yourself doing in that moment. An internal surrender almost to the spiritual forces that are going to either keep you alive or not. Yeah.
Right. And partly because if you were in a bus, you could certainly, more buses crash than planes per person on the planet. I'd have to look that statistic up, but pretty much it's the safest mode of transportation.
Yeah. But you've surrendered control to these pilots and to this technology, and there is a real sense of having surrendered everything to all of that when you're taking off in a plane. Yeah.
Right. And I think part of the
especially
thing that
now, like in Sean Duffy's FAA. But anyway.
Part of the thing that makes it really scary is like when I was flying from the town of Shell in Ecuador to this little community in the jungle, there's nowhere to put it down. Like you can't, if something does go wrong, there isn't like a road that you could land on. It's just, you would crash in the jungle and it would rip the wings off and the engine would go into your teeth. Yeah, it would just, hit a tree at 80 miles an hour. So that's part of the problem is even if you've got a pilot who's an expert in safety equipment, once you're up, you'd have to be able to get to the next airfield to land it properly. Otherwise you're just toast, right? So that's why it makes it more scary. Anyway, So he was going on, oh, why don't we call it? And he goes, what if we refused to get on the plane until it was 100% safe? Would the airline industry do more to make it safe? Like would they? I don't know it's kind of a weird analogy. So we ended up talking about abortion, and I said I'm going to use myself as an example. I think you're looking at the wrong question. I think you're not. If you want to see the number of abortions on the planet go down to zero because you don't like abortions, what if you instead tracked or correlated that decline to the number of intentional births on the planet going up to 100%? Like conceptions, intentional conceptions approaching 100%, right?
Yeah.
And I said,
you don't want unwanted babies. That's
right,
what you're
because
trying. That's a different problem to try to solve, because there's two kinds of abortions. There's unwanted babies and unviable babies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Non-viable babies. Yeah.
So I said, and I'm just because he loved to start with like the planting the seed of karma is you see it's possible in one instance. So I said, I have tried to have 2 children. I conceived them with my partner. Then I had a vasectomy. So I know that it's possible for someone to have 100% intentionally conceived children, and then make it impossible to have more by accident. You know what I mean? So like, just because I was able to do it means it is possible. You just need to start growing the sort of the culture and support of that.
There's a ton of, sorry, keep going, but there's a ton of data to support basically this line of inquiry as the most effective way to reduce the number of abortions. So like when you look at sex ed, quality sex education, and the availability of birth control, those two things are, and women's education, level of education. But just taking the first two, if you look at the presence of those two things in a state or a city or a country, those things seem to correlate most highly with reducing the number of abortions. So you can look at places that did or did not have quality sex ed and available birth control, widely available birth control, and you can see before and after. You can compare places that do and don't have that presently. And so those two things seem to, and so like, I think that in the abortion debate, if you have somebody on the other side of that question who doesn't support quality sex ed and the availability of birth control, they aren't really serious about reducing abortions. They have some other agenda about controlling women or whatever. But like, you can show them the data, and if they don't agree with you that those things are important, then they're not serious about reducing the number of abortions. Yeah.
Right. And so I guess back to
your question is right. Like it's about reducing the number of unwanted pregnancies.
Right. Which if you use that sort of positive, word flip, like the sort of Mother Teresa, I won't go to an anti-war rally, but I'll go to a peace march. That's if you just switch it. And then I also think it draws attention in a nonpartisan way to, well, if you wanted to support, for one thing is in Texas, when they made those really harsh rules about abortion, the number of women that were experiencing pregnancy from rape there were thousands of women per year. Yeah. And there was no money or thought given in those laws to reducing the number of rapes, which there is like a massive miss. Like that.
Well, this is why I harp so much on like the epistemic crisis and because the frustrating thing is when you do have those conversations with people, what they will say is, I don't believe your data. I don't believe your evidence, right? Like I just think abortion should be illegal.
Right.
And you show them the rape, evidence, and they go, that's fake news. So the epistemic crisis to me is like really where the roadblock happens. And it's where those conversations fail.
I had a conversation in a hot tub in Puerto Penasco with our guy who's married to a Colombian, a friend of ours. He's an evangelical MAGA, voted for Trump 3 times. Yeah. But we got to that place where I said, I believe I'm pro-choice, but I also don't want to see the number of abortions rise. I would like to see it go to zero because I'd like to see 100%, approaching 100% intentional conception. And he said, okay, I'm with you on that. So I was like, so let's look at a list of things that would actually move the needle on that data. Like George Bush wanted to give out, but didn't he want to give out condoms in high school or something, right? Which I know Catholics don't believe in condoms, but that's a different issue. But and then this idea that we could look at the data around. You're right. No, if I use the word data, like all of a sudden people's eyes maybe are glazing over.
Well, not necessarily. Like what you kind of just raised is when you're sitting at the pool or in the hot tub with that person, right? When you are on a trip with that person, like this is the only way to have these conversations be somewhat persuasive and effective is in a situation where you have developed a level of trust with that other person.
Yeah.
And so that you sort of trust each other's integrity, motives, whatever. And so it never happens at scale, but it does happen in those one-on-ones. Like you can get to a point with that other person where you go, let's look at the evidence together. Let's look at the data together. And you're able to do it. But like that's something you can't do online with that other person where you go, hey, like the most effective thing is quality sex ed and birth control. And then they go, well, abstinence, I believe in abstinence only. And I don't agree with your data, right? Like
keep it in your pants.
You can't have that conversation online because you've not worked to build that trust. It takes so much work to have that conversation effectively.
Yep.
And so like, it's not that it's impossible. It's just that it's impossible to do it at scale.
Right.
Right.
I am a big fan, for instance, of that, like, I love the idea of kind of, what is it called? Simplifying down to the lowest prime numbers, like 2 times 2, like taking a number and so like if I'm with the guy who's really into, he has a ton of AR-15s.
Yeah.
I'll say, I have said to a guy down in Green Valley at a political rally who he's pro AR-15, I've said 2 things. We watched that the guys in Uvalde, 400, policemen, military, law enforcement officers were afraid to rush the room because their armor couldn't stop the bullet, right? So they knew that he could kill them if they rushed the door. And so wouldn't law enforcement officers prefer to have battlefield weapons taken off the streets? Like, right? So that to me is a pretty fair argument that the people who should be lobbying are people who face them when they rush into a house. If I was one,
but they also imagine themselves facing down the government, and so they do want that armor-piercing capability because in their fantasy world, one of their arguments is that they imagine this tyrannical police force sent by the government to get them, right?
And then the funny mean response to that is because my Reaper drone. You're going to do
of course,
like your AR-15 will take down
good luck
a Reaper
against
drone.
the tanks.
Yeah, exactly.
And the drones,
So that's one that one's easily kind of poo-pooed. Yeah. But here's a good argument. And I forget, somewhere I saw that the number of high school shootings with an AR-15 in the last, since Parkland, that there's a disproportionate number of people who were under 21 and recently purchased the gun.
Right.
So I'd simply say, if I have to be 21 to buy a beer, because we know that it's risky to give an 18-year-old, 19-year-old a beer, why not just make the rule? We all agree that you got to be 21 to buy a fucking AR-15, right? Like
I sort of feel like if you're talking to the guy who doesn't support even a minimal level of like age restrictions, background checks, things like that, then that person's just like, you can just end the conversation, because it is true that like with that issue, a majority of people in this country do support universal background checks, age restrictions, things like that.
Red flag laws.
So like, for that issue, not to, I know you're using it more abstractly as an example, but for that particular issue, like, I think the challenge is trying to get enough of those people who already support, what you would want There are enough of those people out there already. And so like there is this MAGA, same thing with Trump support or whatever. There's this sort of like hardcore MAGA people that you're never going to win over on any issue. There's always like the problematic 30% of people. And so you just kind of like put them aside and try to find your allies.
Well, that's a great question then, because if we're looking at sort of this dystopian snapshot of, current events in the world and democracy, why is the term the tyranny of the minority? Why is it that, let's say, 12% of gun owners, AR-15 owners, refuse to do the under 21 law? Like, why did 12% of the people get to determine what,
no, it's a great question.
78%. It doesn't make any sense.
I think it's a complicated question. I mean, it has to do with the way that issue gets bundled up with, I mean, we only have two parties, right? Yeah. So that issue just gets bundled up with every other reason why people vote Republican or Democrat, right? So there are a handful of people that vote Republican because of that one thing, but there are a lot of other people. It's same with climate change. Like there's overwhelming evidence for climate change. So why is one party like able to deny climate change? Because it's like the 16th thing on their list of reasons why they vote, right?
No, that's a very good point. You're right. That
it just gets bundled. We have two bundles of politics.
And ironically, you're right that if the under 21 thing, if let's say 80% of Republicans think it's a good idea, that's never going to affect their vote for the R. In other words, they're not going to raise the priority of that one up to the point where they'll only vote for a candidate who's pro under 21. Throw the 19-year-olds under the bus is what I'm saying. Like everyone I talk to would be like, throw them under the bus. Like, That's an easy way to say we did something. And then you can just run around campaigning like, I help with gun control. Like you could really say, and you would have made an impact, I think, right? But anyway, you're right, that's so low on their priority list, and it doesn't actually affect whether in other words, if the candidate is pro AR-15 for 5-year-olds, they're not going to not vote for that guy in the primary because he's pro
because
AR-15
of 10 other issues that they voting for him, or just because they hate Democrats so much in an irrational way they can't explain. And so no matter what happens, they're just going to vote against the Democrats. So like, and if I go back to that's the dumb, simple answer, and it's not a satisfying one.
If I go back to my George Bush, like if I hear a terrible, just a factoid about like, Central Kitchen has dropped the number of meals they can serve in Gaza this month down, there's people are starving again. I can't do anything about it. It feels like I can't. So I just kind of shrug and go, ouch. You know what I mean? I'm in the shower, I'm listening to NPR, and I hear this and I go, ouch. I bet there's plenty of people who are Republican voters who hear about a school shooting and they go, oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change the way they think about their vote.
Yeah.
And maybe that's...
I mean, I think about my mom. So like she voted for Trump, right? And she voted for Trump for the dumbest fucking reasons that don't make any sense. And she can't defend any of it, right? Like you can pick apart all the reasons and she'll go, oh, like she starts to feel bad, right? And then like one of the things that has come up in those conversations that I've tried to have with her a few times is like one of the phrases she's used several times in those conversations is, well, I wasn't going to vote for Kamala. Like she had already just decided that for whatever reason, like whatever series of like totally emotional, irrational, it just was a predetermined thing, right?
Yeah, interesting, yeah.
So like, what can you do with that? And so then it was like, well, I was really voting for RFK Jr. and he happened to be, with Trump, right?
Interesting.
And the Democrats didn't let him run for president. And, in her weird fantasy world, he might have had a chance. He might have had a shot if they let him primary, if they had a primary where he was in it and stuff, right? Like she has this sort of fantasy where RFK could have made it to the, to the nomination.
Or at least if Kamala had promised to give him the Secretary of Health,
something,
you know what I mean?
whatever. Like maybe that would have helped, right? Yeah. So,
not that she could have. He's an idiot, so why?
Maybe, yeah. But like, if somebody if their starting point is, well, I wasn't going to vote for Kamala, like, and so like, this is what's so frustrating. Like when I've tried to have this conversation with her, what came out of those conversations, and I've had this with other kind of Trump supporters over the years, is just that like there is no rationality there. It's a lot of it is emotional. A lot of it is just sort of like ill-informed on issues. You know, people will be like, well, I like Trump's policies. And then you go, well, which policies? And then they can't name a single one, right? Or they'll be like, well, immigration. And you go, well, what do you like about his immigration policy? But then they can't describe it at all, right? And so you go, oh, like 90% of America, well, I don't know how many, but like a huge number of American voters have that level of sophistication about their voting. And, you know, so like, it's really unsatisfying, you know, when you see these Trump supporters occasionally be like, well, I regret my vote, you know, like I see the light now, and, you know, they are received or not received, you know, whatever that message is received or not received by, you know, quote unquote, the left. Sometimes, like sometimes people go, well, you're forgiven. Cool. It's nice to have you in the right camp. And then other times they go, fuck you. You know, it was an open book test. Like now that your farm is going under, you feel regret. Like fuck off. There were a million other things that you could have made you feel regret, and you only seem to care when it affects you personally.
Yeah.
So we don't, you know, it was an open book test this whole time. There was the one thing you can't possibly say is you didn't know.
Right.
Right. But I've tried to have that conversation like with my mom, and it seems like she just literally didn't know. And then you go, is it really true that like a huge swath of American voters are just like that in the dark, that ill-informed? I'll just say one more thing.
Yeah.
That I thought about at the beginning of this podcast. I was thinking about, this is about going back to this notion of the world changing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like with AI.
Yeah.
And I'll get out of politics a little bit.
Yeah.
Because sorry, we went there for a while, and we haven't done that in a bit. But I was thinking about like another way that your life could just change overnight. Like everything about normal life could just change overnight. Is this, let's say you're just somebody who lives in Ukraine and Russia invades, and your life is kind of turned upside down overnight, right? And I read. Okay, so this is actually about Lebanon, not Ukraine, but like it's about both. So some years ago, after Russia invaded Ukraine, I had a coworker, a software engineer at my company, my last company I worked. She worked out of Ukraine, and so Russia invaded. And she just was on our payroll, and we had some challenges. It was like, well, how do we pay you? Whatever. Like there were some issues with payments and stuff at different points, but like. She never stopped working for us. So there's this weird level to which life continues.
Yeah.
But the reason I thought of, so then this other woman in Lebanon, I saw a social media tweet like 6 months ago. And this person was saying that they were working for an American company remote in Lebanon, similar kind of job, like software QA or something. And they said to their American coworker on a Zoom call or email or Slack or something, like they made a side comment about like, you know, like, oh, it's still okay. You know, things are still fine. Like I still have a good internet despite the war or something like that. And her American coworker was like, what war?
Whoa.
You know what I mean? So this is what we're dealing with in some sense. There are a lot of people who are just kind of like, blissfully ignorant about stuff, just in the dark, unsophisticated. They're not really following things. And my mom's kind of one of those people. Like I think of her as this smart, tuned in person.
Yeah.
But she's very selective about what she's tuned into. And she's just as vulnerable to being stupid and in the dark about stuff as anybody else. And it's kind of depressing. Because what do you do with that? I don't know what you do with that.
I have a couple of thoughts. Do you remember our friend from the wedding in Colombia, that the tall doctor who she was an emergency room resident in Oakland for 5 years, and she said, I would ask her, "Hey, how's it going?" And she'd be like, there's a war that's not covered. There's an internal war. Like I see up to 17 gunshot wounds a day in the Oakland ER where I work. And no one talks about it in the media. No one says, "Oh, there's a gang war that's bringing in 17 wounded soldiers onto the cots in front of me that I'm working on." And then I go home and everyone else is just like, "Oh yeah, I got this new thing from Amazon that I love." And she's like, "There is a war. Like there's a war in Oakland that no one talks about."
Cognitive dissonance must be really, really hard.
It's probably really difficult, and it's that the number, like the suicide rate among drone operators in the military is far higher than like battlefield infantry guys, because they kill someone in like a video game, then they walk outside and everyone's like, "Hey, you gonna play racquetball later?"
Yeah.
And there's no.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the experience of like veterans coming back from war zones in general. It's just like they've had this experience for some years where there's life and death stakes.
Yeah.
And then, their day-to-day life at that point is people complaining about like their Starbucks order got made wrong or whatever, right? And so like
culture shock, it blows
that's
their
such
mind,
a weird. I thought that movie, what was that movie about the bomb squad guy in Iraq? It did such a great job with that kind of cognitive dissonance upon his return.
Yeah, like he chooses to go back because and he's also addicted to the adrenaline of it.
Right, but like you can see why he was, because he comes back to civilian life, or sort of like, on leave or whatever. I don't remember if he was if he was just between deployments or if he left the service for a period. But like you see why he's addicted, because he's in this world all of a sudden where life has no real stakes for anybody, but everybody acts like shit's serious. And he's just like, and you can see his pain. Like everybody's acting like this is serious.
Yeah.
And like this is just depressing and bland and dull and not serious and purposeless and bullshit. And like he wants to go back to where stuff is real.
Yeah.
And you get it.
And like disarming a bomb literally has the effect that you'll save lives if it's no longer
it's real. It's not this fake bullshit that we're all in the middle of pretending is real. So like, that movie did I think a phenomenal job of conveying that. That was the thing that I remember feeling most from that film. Yeah.
So I want to finish with my sort of my own, I'm prescribing. So when I taught yoga, like I'd go through like life's ups and downs, and I'd go in and I used to say like teaching yoga was like a therapy for me, like a session, because I'd be telling the students to work intentionally on a, ergonomic, somatic level and, psychological level, and to be intentional to create more beneficial outcomes. And then I'd sort of get out and be like, I should just do what I tell them to do. Like, so I should remind myself,
Yeah.
So there was this, so I'm thinking about like, I had a tough time, especially with the last election, feeling very anxious, trying to work in politics, trying to make positive change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just pulled back and I've been painting and trying to not participate. But I'm looking at that from that perspective, like that, that satellite orbit level, and trying to say, could I do this? So let me tell a very quick story. I taught, it was all about intentionality, and you could do exactly the same thing with a negative intention or positive intention, and it looked the same, but the outcome, the eventual outcome was different, right? So I had this woman, it was a noon class, and there was a woman who was a shock jock. She was one of those like radio personalities that just in the morning show, like they're kind of like Howard Stern, but she was like a local person. And she thought my name is Mike, and she thought my name was Mark, but she was from New Jersey, so she said Mork. And then she would always raise her hand, like while I was walking around the room, and she'd be like, Mark. And I would come over and be like, what? And she'd be like, my knee hurts. And I would be kind of like, oh my God, that's so complicated. Like I'm teaching, okay, I'd be like, go into child's pose. We'll talk about it after class. Like, I don't really know, I don't have time to like workshop your knee hurting.
Right.
in the middle of the pose,
I'm
right?
teaching a class. It's not a one-on-one.
So we were doing
lesson.
these sun salutations, and we'd be in Warrior One, and I'd hold them there for say 30 seconds, which is kind of a lot. Your quad is burning, and I'd having them breathe and like work through like organizing themselves so that they weren't over efforting and hurting themselves. And then I'd say, okay, inhale, exhale, fold forward, and come back down. And she'd go, oh. And I would say, okay, I'm not going to say her name, but I would say, look, okay, that's the whole class could hear her groan when we were done the pose. And I would say very clearly to me, if I'm going to come out of the pose, if I focus on that I can't do it anymore, I'm going to bring that with me into the whole, out of the pose. And it's like sort of that metaphor of off the mat, like bring it off the mat into my life. Or if I think I'm going to intentionally come down and rest so that I can do a better job on the other side. You know what I mean? Like then I'm focusing on that I'm resting on purpose. Yay, I'm resting so that I can get up and do the other side and balance it out. Instead of like, oh my God, he left us in it too long.
I'm glad that's over.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that's over. Versus
it's either I'm glad that's over versus, oh, I'm grateful for this rest right now.
Exactly. There you go. And so I would like to sort of take that concept and basically go and do the hard work, like we were saying, have those conversations with people, but don't take it personally and don't feel upset. Just do the work because I'm grateful to be an amino acid-based life form in this, absolute miracle of a moment.
Yeah.
Where a huge amount of us are refusing to admit that there's climate change and that guns, you know what I mean? Like to do that, to be willing to do that work no matter what, out of love and positive intention rather than like, because I just can't put up with this shit anymore. You know what I mean? That's going to be my sort of reminder to myself. Hopefully that inspires someone else.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think that I love that. And I, one of my obstacles to that is just that I'm such a deep introvert that I have such a hard time figuring out, like, number one, how I've just been talking to my wife about this lately. Like, I need to find ways to get out of my introvert shell because I have an unlimited sort of tolerance for being alone. And so I need to figure out how to bust through that to get out of that introvert shell and figure out, like, number one, like, I don't even know where to start, like what groups to even, like what friends groups, whatever to like get involved with. I don't even know because like there's so much inner resistance to that. But I would like to, in the spirit of what you said, I want to figure out how to engage in real life with more people. That's one of my goals. And I don't know how to do that. But I think, what you're saying is right. Like, like the only way to make meaningful, positive progress with other people who don't agree with us is one-on-one. There is no way to do that at scale. And it's sort of that, like, to really simplify it, it's that, it's about love, right? Like,
yeah. Can you, can you engage with someone is frustrating you out of love and come at it in a soft way? Come at a very, very, be maybe strong at your core, but don't let the sort of peripheral obstacles with that person make you, for me, it's why I take it
to some
personal.
extent, but they also have to be willing to meet you there too. You know what I mean? Like, cause you do find people that maybe you want to engage with and they just don't have any openness at all or any curiosity, right? Like, the other person needs to have some level of openness or you just move on to the next one.
That was going to be my thing, is that like moving on, the moment that you realize, it's kind of like when I was dating after I got divorced and I would take it personally. And my friend would be like, if they're not interested, just fucking move on. Like, just don't spend another second worrying about it. Like, don't get, so if you could, like, for instance, I had that conversation with this liberal Democratic guy where he just loves Putin. And I started to kind of like try to argue with him. And then I should have just been like, oh my God, he just loves Putin and there's nothing I could say. I should walk away and not waste. And I did. I just drove. I said, I got to go. And I just drove
I mean,
away.
if like every chance they have to talk is to try to convince you or persuade you or argue with you, and there's zero questioning on their side, they're not open. There's no openness there.
And it's a waste of time, and just move on.
Yeah.
That's it. But do it not out of like, I can't stand that you exist in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But just, I want to focus my attention on people that are persuadable, where we can find the common good. I love that we talk about the common good a lot. You know, where we can bring in the lowest prime numbers, 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. For what are the common good? You know, like we all agree we like the road to work.
And you have to have the same curiosity to be willing to see them for real, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about that curiosity and openness on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's such a gift. I'm grateful for that. We have this weekly, session, and Satellite Haiku is an important part of keeps me sane. It keeps me.
Likewise.
Yeah. Lots of love. Have a good rest of your week.
Peace, my brother.
Satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.